Welcome to the August the 5th, 1997 taping of It Happened in Grand Prairie, as we bring you special history highlights about people living in Grand Prairie, Texas, and we're very privileged today. We've done a history tape on a young man and his wife. However, later on in doing a little research, we found that Dr. J.W. Nutt had spent some very interesting war years that we wanted to tape. And this is our history tape number 312, and we're very excited to welcome back what we really call one of our longtime war heroes from World War II, and that's the number 2 one. Dr. J.W. Nutt, welcome back.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you with us, Dr. Nutt. And today we're going to talk about one of your loves that happened to you many, many long years ago, and that is a very special love affair that you had with a special ship. But before we get to even naming that ship, we'd like to set the stage so that this tape will be a little bit more complete. I would like to get your genealogy and just a little bit about Dr. J.W. Nutt. If you'd name your parents and where you were born, and we'll start out with that for this interview.
Well, my father was Pascal Ely Nutt, and my mother was Emma May Nutt, and I was born in Runge, Texas, R-U-N-G-E, right out of Kennedy.
Right out of Kennedy. That's down near the coast, near to the coast.
Up from Beeville.
Up from Beeville, okay. And as a young man, you grew up, of course, with that wonderful family, went off to school and did all of these good things, but what we're interested in is that career in the Navy. Tell us when you joined the Navy and where they sent you, and something about your naval career.
Well, I was 17 years old in 1941, February, and I joined the Navy and went to San Diego for my boot camp training.
All right.
And that's where I done all my boot camp.
What did you think about it, 17, going into boot camp out in California, a long way from Runge, Texas?
Well, it's really weird because a young man like that and getting out of state, much less out of town, and going through all the things that you go through to become, quote, a man or sailor.
Yes.
And yeah, it had a lot of things that I can remember about.
How long did you spend in the San Diego area, and from where did you go after that, please?
We were there for 90 days.
All right.
And then I went on a boot camp leave and come back, and then we were assigned to our ships at that time.
All right. Did you have a choice of ships that you were to be on?
Yes, they gave us a first and a second choice of ships.
What was your first choice? I'm interested in what your first choice.
Well, the first choice, of course, being a Texan, I was the USS Houston.
Oh, I see.
They only had the Houston and the Northampton, which both were heavy cruisers. In fact, both of them were sister ships. And so I chose the Houston for the first choice and the Northampton for my second choice.
All right. And what happened on the Houston?
Well, I got my second choice. In fact, the business, I was the only one that had gotten a second choice. The rest of them got their first choice. So.
And is that all of your classmates in boot camp?
Yes, they got their first choice for which way they went, Northampton or Houston.
Yes.
And Houston, it was a blessing that I didn't get it because at the beginning of the war, down in the Java Straits, they were lost all hands except maybe 50 or below, and the rest of them spent the rest of the time in Japanese prison camp.
Oh my, so if you'd gotten on the USS Houston, you would either have been in a Japanese war camp or dead.
Yes.
Yes. Well, that must have been something sort of providential in your feeling, right?
Yes, there was quite a few blessings in my career that happened that seemed to keep me going and living.
Okay. Well, I think I know that at the end of our program, to run the credits, we're going to show a photograph of the USS Northampton, and I think that I think that if I hold this up just right, that Lewis will be able to get this. And I think this is a wonderful ship. And what kind of a cruiser was it?
It was a heavy cruiser, 635 feet long, and it cruised at 32.5 knots, which is pretty fast.
Yes.
And heavily armed.
But a heavy cruiser like this, it's not quite as large as a battleship, but it's a big boy compared to a little destroyer, right?
It's next to the battleship far as size is concerned.
Far as size is concerned.
In fact, the business, the guns that we had on our ship was longer range guns than the 16-inch guns on the battleships was, and we could stand outside their range and hit them, and they couldn't reach us.
I see.
So that's a good fit for that.
All right. Now, this USS Northampton, where was it berthed when you were assigned to it?
In San Diego.
In San Diego. So you left right out of San Diego?
Yes.
How soon after boot camp were you on the Northampton and ready to go?
As soon as they could drive me over on the bus and put me on it.
Oh my! They were ready for Freddie. They're ready to go then, weren't they?
They'd come in to pick up recruits, and then we went back to Hawaii.
And then, all right, where was your first trip? To Hawaii?
To Hawaii, yes. It took 6 days to go.
All right. How many times did you go back and forth to Hawaii before they bombed Hawaii?
I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Did you ever get there before they bombed it?
Oh yes. We were based in Hawaii, and we done all our reconnaissance out of Hawaii.
Yes.
And in fact, the business, we went to Australia on a goodwill tour before Pearl Harbor.
Oh, you did?
Yes. And that was a goodwill tour, as it says, and we went to Brisbane, Australia. We was in Brisbane for 5 days, but we had an initiation of what they called polywogs and then shellbacks. Shellbacks were the ones that crossed the equator before, and shellbacks are the ones that never crossed the equator. And so you
now the polywogs had never crossed the equator before in all of their naval career.
That's right.
And the shellbacks, they were the big boys, the ones that had
already crossed.
All right.
So they built a tank and a bunch of stuff aboard the quarterdeck on the ship, and for initiation. And they used to, back in the old days, they used to keel hold them, run them around the keel, but they don't do that anymore. And but
did they do that to you all?
No.
No. Okay.
But we were initiated for that, and
was that impressive?
Oh yes. They had it 2 chairs on the deck there that would fall backwards, and you'd fall back into the water, and the ones that was in the water would beat you with cloth-filled socks and wet and a few other things. And they had one of these deals you put your head in and your arms in, and all this stuff.
All sorts of things to torment you, right?
And we had a Boilermaker. He was a very fat man and up in years, and he was the Neptune baby. And we also had to kiss his navel.
Oh my. Almost like in college fraternities, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yes, and okay. So you went through all those ceremonies when you crossed the equator and got down to Australia. How long did y'all stay in Australia?
We was there 5 days, and we was the first ship within that had come into Brisbane, Australia in 11 years as far as a naval ship is concerned.
Oh, really?
And so they rolled out the red carpet for us, and lifted the petro restrictions, and really did show us a
good welcome.
Good welcome, yes.
Yes, Was that your first trip to Australia?
Yes.
Yes,
And my last one.
Yes, and your last one. Okay. After you all left Australia, then where did the Northampton go?
Well, we went up to Port Moresby, New Guinea, and had liberty there, and and then went on around over to Rabaul, New Britain, and had liberty there. And of course, they have headhunters on the Port Moresby, you know.
Yes.
And they wasn't doing that now, however, but
Yes.
years ago, that's an English-owned island.
Yes.
And the Queen used to send its ships over there and shell the island to punish them for doing that, and they'd quit doing it for a while. See?
I see. But that was an old tradition,
That's
I'm
an
sure.
old tradition, yes.
Yes, all right.
Yeah.
Then after you left there, where'd you go?
Well, we did something that very few people ever get to do, and that is cross the 180th meridian and the equator at the same time, and you become a imperial golden dragon when you do that.
All right. Now, I have a certificate that I want you to hold it up, Dr. Nutt, right on you right here, because Lewis has you clued in on that. That is your certificate that says you're an imperial golden dragon, yes, of the domain, imperial domain of the Golden Dragon, and has J.W. Nutt on there. What date did that happen to you?
It's probably on there.
No, it doesn't say. Oh, it's at 12 o'clock, Saturday, the 20th of July, 1941.
Yeah.
Dr. Nutt, that was a long time
It
ago.
was.
Yes. And
I was
this
still
says
17.
This says the silent mysteries of the Far East, having crossed the 180th meridian, and it gives the time at the latitude of such and such a latitude. And this was all on the North Hand. What did that mean? Were you in a special club, or were you initiated, or what?
No, we were not initiated for this, but having done this, I would say that it's probably very, very few people living that have had done this as of this time.
Mm-hmm. And always they gave you a certificate?
Yes.
Everyone on board got a certificate like
yes,
this? Okay. Do you have that framed at home or something, or what?
No, I'm afraid it went down with the ship. When I didn't get to save it, but I do have it in the book that we were given
Yes.
for this.
Yes, I
cruise.
think that's wonderful. All right, and after you left Australia and down in that area, where did you go?
Well, we come on back to Hawaii,
All right.
and
After you'd already become one of these imperial dragons.
Yes.
All right, so now you were real important.
Yeah.
And where'd you go from there?
well, we did our maneuvers and things, and practiced our gunnery and what have you, and just before Pearl Harbor, well, we were sent to the Enterprise, which is the carrier.
Yes.
We was in her task force, and we were sent to Wake with some planes, Wake Island, and we were supposed to get back in time for Liberty on this weekend.
In Hawaii?
In Hawaii. And the weekend was the weekend of the 7th
Oh, my.
of December.
Yes.
And we launched our planes and turned around to come back, and everything was going fine. We was all looking forward for Liberty, and the Enterprise lost suction on the boilers, and that delayed us about 6 hours or more.
Yes.
And then in the refueling, we got an 8-inch hauser line wrapped up in our screws, and that delayed us for about 6 hours or so.
Do you think this was providential, Dr. Nutt?
It definitely was. And
Otherwise, you would have been
I
in
would have
Hawaii.
been there because we were supposed to be there for Liberty, tied up at our normal berth. Mm-hmm. And I was in the quartermaster gang, which meant we steered the ship and kept the logs and
Yes.
and everything. And I was on the wheel that morning coming in, and we have a warning net in the conning tower, which messages comes over all the time.
Yes.
They come over and says, air raid on Pearl Harbor, this is no drill. Repeat, air raid on Pearl Harbor, this is no drill.
And y'all thought it was a joke, or was a drill at first,
Well,
didn't
we
you?
didn't think it was right at first, but it turned out to be so. And
How
anyway,
far were you from Pearl Harbor when you got the message?
75 to 150 miles out, somewhere in that
Yes.
neighborhood. And
Could you see any of the action or anything that was going on from
No.
that far away?
No.
You couldn't hear anything?
couldn't hear nothing, see anything.
Yes.
But one of our Lulu planes, which is our SOC planes, that
Yes.
we launch off of the pardon me, cruiser.
Yeah.
We have it's a pontoon plane,
Yes.
and it knocked down a zero.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. We asked him how he knocked it down. He said, well, he's skimming the water like it, and he says the zero dived on him and pulled out, and when he did, well, he left his belly wide open, so they
just shot
got
him.
him.
Yes.
So, but in the meantime, we were attacked by submarines.
Oh, you were?
Jap submarines.
Right out away from Pearl Harbor.
And I was still on the wheel, and the skipper says, left flank degree rudder. Well, flank degree rudder in peacetime is 22.5 degrees.
Yes.
And so I turned and 22.5 degrees, and he turned around and cussed. He says, put it to the stops. And so I threw it to the stops, and that means you just, like that, at
Do a wheelie.
32 miles an hour, 32 knots, you just sharp turn.
Yes.
And you have such a list, you take water over the gunnels on aboard the ship. And anyway, I broke all the dishes in the wardroom, the officers' wardroom, and turned sailors up and down, upside down, and
I guess
all their
so.
food and tables and everything. But we missed the torpedoes.
Yes.
And then we didn't go in. This was the 7th, and we did not go in that day. We tried to find the fleet, but we could not find them, and it's probably a good thing we didn't, because we was the only thing left over there to fight with, and we probably wouldn't have been left if we'd have found them.
I see.
Because they had 4 carriers and a big fleet of battleships and everything. So as we, the next day, the next morning of the 8th, well, we went in the harbor.
Was that a pretty sad sight, Dr. Nutt? I know that being on the Northampton and seeing that not firsthand on the 7th, but seeing it absolutely on the 8th must have been a real traumatic thing to see such a beautiful fleet.
Anyway, there was one battleship that was beached in the cornfields there as it comes out of the harbor, and the reason they did, because if they'd have continued, they would have blocked the harbor, so they beached it.
Uh-huh.
And I don't remember which one it was. I was thinking it was the Nevada, but I'm not sure. But anyway, as we went on in, of course, the oil on the water was still burning.
I know that you must have had many of your Northampton comrades that were really surprised at what would have what happened in a surprise attack like that.
Well,
They would have never dreamed that would have happened. Would
It,
they?
it really shook you up when you seen all that. And
Yes.
of course, all the battleships, we was going down Battleship Row, and they were all burning, or Oklahoma was turned over on its side. The Arizona had sunk completely, sunk right straight down.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing was sticking up was her guns, and she was still smoking. And the old Vestal, which was a repair ship that was tied up alongside the
Mm-hmm.
Arizona,
Mm-hmm.
she was damaged at the time. The Arizona was hit,
Uh-huh.
and she beached herself over on Ia, and we moored our ship right off of Ia.
Who was the captain of your Northampton?
Captain Chandler, he was an old man, and he retired shortly after the war.
Was the captain of your ship?
Right, started after the war started, and that's another story I'll get into in just a minute. But the Vestal, talking about the Vestal now, when we tied up, well, I was in the quartermaster gang, and you
Yeah.
stand watch with the OD on the watch all through the deck. And I had we had a 4 to 8 watch, and the old Vestal opened up with everything she had, and we wondered what in the world is shooting at. So me and the OD grabbed our guns and ran up on the forecastle on the bow to see what was going on, and there was an IE pineapple train that goes along IE over there,
Yeah.
and it was shooting out fire, and they were shooting at that. But they were trigger happy. Everybody was trigger
Yes.
happy that night. In fact, the business, I was told we was told to hail boats 3 times and didn't answer to fire across the bow, you know. And of course, there was a boat out there that was we couldn't tell what it was or who it was. And we hailed it 3 times, and the OD said fire. I fired across the bow, and it happened to be an admiral's boat.
Oh, my.
He was checking out the damage,
Yeah.
so I think he turned in after that.
Yeah, I would think so. And your captain, what were your orders after you came into Pearl, found it in a mess? Then what happened to you all on the Northampton?
Search and destroy it. When we left, it was our orders.
Search and destroy. That means to just get out and get with it.
Looking for everything.
Did you fuel? Were you able to refuel
we
there?
refueled and took on all that we needed to take on, and left there the next morning, and we went sub hunting actually.
Yes.
And we dropped
Depth charges?
depth charges off of our ship too.
Oh, you did?
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know
And
the
we
heavy
blew up-
cruisers had those.
We blew up one sub out there that actually surfaced and broke in half when it surfaced. And I don't see that very much, but that did happen. And then we come back in and, after doing that a couple of times, and we did go to Marshall and Gilbert Islands for a raid.
All right.
And we bombed and shelled, and this is the Enterprise Task Force now I'm speaking
Yes.
of. And the cruisers would shell it, and the Enterprise planes would bomb it, you know.
Yes.
And we tore up about everything I had over there, and then and come back, and then the next trip we went to Wake and did about the same thing there.
Where were you refueling all of these times, Dr. Nutt?
Well,
Most of
sometimes we refueled at sea, and sometimes we wouldn't have to.
They had tankers there
Yes.
so that you could
Yes,
refuel there at sea?
And there's an island about 1,000 miles from Tokyo. It's called the Mariana Islands, and
Yeah.
we went in there and did the same thing there. And we sunk a few ships, small ships, in those islands. But anyway, when the planes would go in with their squadrons each time, they'd say Hornet Squadron, Enterprise Squadron, so on. They had about 3 or 4 carriers there, and we picked up a radio program going back over to Japan saying they were being attacked by 3 carriers.
Of all of the battles that you fought on the Northampton, what was probably the most exciting one? We just have 5 more minutes on
Was
this
that?
interview.
Oh, goodness.
Dr. Nutt, we're getting so close down. There's got to be something else you've just got to tell before
Well,
we close this
we
interview.
was in the Midway battle, and that was the turning point of the war. And I imagine everybody's read about the Midway battle, and Coral Sea battle was a big battle.
All right.
And we went to Tokyo and took Doolittle. We was in about 400 miles of Tokyo when we launched Doolittle, and we was in typhoon weather the whole time we was over there, and so forth. There's just so much to tell about this. Time is something else, I guess.
I know it. Well, what
And-
I want to get at is you have written a wonderful book about your experiences. And when I read that, I thought it was just so exciting. That's the reason I just really wanted you to come and give us some highlights of that. And we have about 4 more minutes or 3.5 minutes left. I want you in that length of time to tell whatever you would like to tell about the rest of this. And when you see me wind down like this, you're
Well,
going
the Hornet
be off of
was
here.
a carrier that we've eventually attached to after after we went to Tokyo, and then we got down south, we were reattached to the Hornet. And she was sunk in the Santa Cruz battle, and we tried to get on her tow, we couldn't. And then we were put in the battleship division, which means that you ship-to-ship battle. There's no more airplane, it's ship-to-ship.
Yeah.
And we were sent to Guadalcanal in a night battle, and we had 4 cruisers, I believe it was, and a bunch of destroyers. We were supposed to get there first, and our plane was supposed to illuminate us, and so forth and so on. And anyway, we were sunk at that night, and we were expected to be, because that was the 13th hour of the day, and that was the 13th time that we were sunk, a battle. And everything, so many 13s coming into play there.
So you lost the Northampton.
We lost them.
That was, and you called her the Nora, didn't you? Why did you call her the Nora?
Nora, that's the first part of it. And we called her the Nora Maru and her fighting crew.
I see.
And then
2 minutes.
After that, well, we left there and went to New Caledonia as anyway, survivors.
Yes.
And most of them went back to the States, and they left about 8 or 9 of us over there. And we spent about 6 months on the island there, and then we were transferred into the Macaulay, which is a transport, and we made a landing in Randova around New George Island, and then we had about 6 months in New George, which is a very interesting time of it too, but you don't have no time for that either.
No.
So
And then when did you get back to the States?
February the 14th, 1944. I was 34 months overseas, 11 months on the island, 14 major engagements, and a couple of ships almost shot out from under me.
Oh, Dr. Nutt, I think that is just a wonderful report, and I really do want to thank you for coming and sharing that, because I know some of it was real tough for you to have to recall. And of course, a salute to the Northampton that you lost. But at least you had all of those months more than you would have if you'd have been on the Houston.
Oh, yes.
And I want to thank you very much for being with us today to bring us this wonderful history tape. We had planned to do this for the 4th of July or for Memorial Day, but since you weren't well and I wasn't well at that time, we're going to bring it in just the middle of August, and we're just going to enjoy it just as much. And
well, I wish we'd had more time, or I could have talked faster or something.
I know you would have told it all. Thank you very much, Dr. Nutt, and we appreciate your tour on the Northampton and your recollections of World War II, and especially in the Pacific Ocean. Thank you very much. And this is Ruthie Jackson reminding you that history is as we live and do.